Hello guys. Okay, once again we're going to be going over a couple of the worksheets. This is the second worksheet. Hopefully you did well on the first one. This one is about biological diversity and conservation. If we start at the top, we notice that there are 10 terms: environments, biological diversity, variety, equator, greater, less, space, decrease, species, and increase. There's 10 words, but there's only 8 blanks. So there's going to be 2 words that we do not use. That's just a test taking tip. All right, let's start with the first. Blank refers to the blank of life. So we're going to start with biological diversity, would go here, refers to the variety of life in an area. Another word for biological diversity is biodiversity, variety of life. The simplest measure of biodiversity is the number of species that live in a certain area. So if we have so many frogs, so many cats, so many dogs, so many horses, roaches, ants, those different populations, if there's a lot of populations, it's going to have a lot of biodiversity, a big variety of life. The more species there are, the greater the biodiversity of the area. So greater would go for number 4. Biodiversity on land tends to increase as you move toward the equator. This makes sense. It gets a lot more sunlight there. That's where the rainforests are. As you move all the way to the extreme of the North Pole, it's a lot colder. There's a lot fewer types of animals that are able to survive there. So it just makes sense that the closer you are to the equator, the greater the biodiversity. Biodiversity is greater on large islands than on small islands because large islands have more environments and a greater variety of space, I understand that some of you probably want to flip those around, saying, well, large islands have more space and a greater variety of environments. I'll definitely take that. That would be fine, either way you put them. Now we're going to work to the true and false section. Hopefully you did well on those first 8. Biodiversity provides our world with beauty. Remember when we talked about the different benefits of biodiversity? Beauty was one of them. We have a lot of flowers that would be used at a wedding, and some that you probably wouldn't want to take to a wedding. So thinking of a beautiful play, beautiful things, that's definitely a different type of plant. Differences vary. Those are variations. The loss of species from an by the way, biodiversity provides our world with beauty. That is true. That is true. The loss of species from an ecosystem usually has no effect because of the presence of other species in the ecosystem. Obviously, this is false. If you've lost species, that's never going to be a good thing. So that is false. So it will definitely have an effect. Number 11, biodiversity decreases the stability of an ecosystem because more species are competing with each other. Well, this competition in this situation is actually good. So actually an ecosystem is going to be more stable if there's more biodiversity because you're going to be able to have more different creatures that can fill the different roles or the niches that are required for that ecosystem. So number 11 will be false. Number 12, increasing the biodiversity of an ecosystem may result in more niches. Well, this is actually going to be false because I'm I know this may be a little bit confusing. It's a little hard to think about it, but as you increase, you have a lot more variety. You're not going to have as many roles. The niches are the roles of an organism in the environment. If you happen to have missed this one, don't count that one wrong because that was a little bit tricky. Actually, Miss Peak and I, we discussed this one for several minutes, kind of going back and forth. We finally landed on false being the better of the two choices. Number 13, diseases are more likely to spread in an ecosystem with high biodiversity than in an ecosystem with low. Well, this is true. If you remember from social studies, when the Spanish, came in and encountered the natives, the Indians, a lot of those were wiped out by disease. So when so kind of it's a stretch, but in the same way, when you have a lot of different types of life forms that are in an area, then the diseases can definitely spread quicker. If you were at the North Pole with low biodiversity, chances of diseases spreading to something is probably going to be a lot lower. So 13 obviously was true. Number 14, a decrease in the variety of life may affect people's diets. Definitely. If there are less things to eat, and you can think about it in the extreme, if we did not have tomatoes, we did not have cucumbers, we did not have onions, and all we had was potatoes, you can see that that's definitely going to affect a diet. And then preserving the diverse plant species may lead to the discovery of new drugs in the future. And yes, we're talking about pharmaceutical drugs, not the kind of drugs that you don't need to be using. But we definitely need to save these different plant species because there may be a cure that we find from one of these that we may need in the future. Going to the next page, column A and column B. Once again, we count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 answers. So we know that we're going to use each word one time. Okay, the number of members of a species is so low that there is a possibility of extinction. If we remember that we have actually thriving, which we haven't talked much about, but a species can be thriving, or then it can be threatened, and then it can become endangered, and then it can go extinct. So if it's so low that there's a possibility of extinction, then this is definitely going to be an endangered species. That's F. Sorry. This animal is an example of an endangered species, and this is actually the black rhinoceros. So that's going to be C. So number 16 was F. Number 17 was C. Number 18, the population of a species begins declining rapidly. When we see that all of a sudden a lot of these are dying off, we'll know that there is a threat there. And so that is going to be a threatened species. And that's going to be B, threatened species B. Number 19, this animal is an example of an extinct species. And that actually is going to be the passenger pigeon, which died off probably in the 20s or 30s. But it's no longer around. It has gone extinct. So number 19 is A. Number 20, all members of a species have died, so the species no longer exists. This is an extinct species, E. And then number 21, this animal is an example of a threatened species. Right now, the African elephant, D, is the one that is threatened currently. Okay, the next section Let me move my box a little bit. You're going to have three choices of where to put a check mark. You're going to complete the table by checking the correct column for each statement. Animals have no migratory route. So if they're not able to move from one environment to another, they're going to be sectioned off. If you think about sections, you're going to think about fragments, which is a segment. So that segment, that is going to be habitat fragmentation. If a rainforest is burned, common sense will tell us that you need to put the check mark under you've lost the habitat. That's going to be habitat loss. A highway divides a forest. Once again, it's been sectioned off into parts. If you think about parts, then you need to think about fragmentation, fragments. So that is habitat fragmentation. Number 4, acid precipitation leaches nutrients from the soil. So we know that the acid precipitation is actually hurting something. So that is going to be degrading it. If you think about that vocabulary word, degrade, that's habitat. We know that's a bad thing. Bad for the habitat. Habitat degradation. Detergents and other chemicals pollute bodies of water. This is obviously hurting the habitat. It's not destroying it totally. It's not sectioning it off. It is degrading it. So that's habitat degradation. If coral is mined for building material, well, guess what? Nothing can live in the coral anymore. It's gone. So it's lost. That's habitat loss. And then 28, the reduction of the ozone layer causes more ultraviolet radiation to reach the Earth's surface. It doesn't totally destroy it, so it's not totally lost. It doesn't section off the habitats, but it is hurting them. And if it's hurting them, it is degrading them. Degrading them. Okay, and then to the last little section of this worksheet. Hopefully you're doing well. This is about vanishing species continued. Circle the letter of the choice that best completes the statement. When species lose their habitats, they may A, lack food, B, be in danger of becoming extinct, that was C. B is lack shelter, or D, all the above. When I first looked at this, I just thought, hey, if they've lost their habitats, they're going to be in danger of let me go back. Sorry. If they lost their habitat, then my immediate reaction was, oh, it's C. They must be in danger of becoming extinct. But we know that we need to take our time and read all of the answers. If they've lost their habitat, they're lacking food, they're lacking shelter. So the correct answer is D, all of the above. So don't be one of those speed demons that flies through and clicks answers, because D is the better choice. Number 30, habitat fragmentation often leads to if the habitat has been sectioned off, obviously it's not going to have a larger habitat. It's not going to have something that's increased. That's never a good thing. It's not going to increase the diversity. It's going to hurt something. So it's going to decrease the species diversity within the area. So you could look at the 4 choices and you can find, there's a few of them that are good and one that's bad. The bad one is the correct answer in this situation. Number 31, different conditions along the boundaries of an ecosystem are called this is the edge effect. This has not been covered, so do not mark this one wrong if you missed it. This is just kind of one of those extra questions that gets thrown in there. But if you were just doing a test-taking skill, you would think along the boundary, along the edge, that would be the edge effect. Number 32, the greatest source of air pollution. Well, volcanic eruptions actually, they put a lot of air pollution into, and this is just the natural part of Earth and the Earth's processes. But actually, where we are hurting ourselves the most is through the burning of fossil fuels. That's the amount of cars. And I was just from when I was younger, a lot of households only had one or maybe two cars, and now it seems like everyone has a car. So there's a lot more traffic than there was when I was growing up. So with this addition of cars, of course, they are a lot more environmentally friendly, if you want to say that, as opposed to the cars that we had in the past. But the burning the fossil fuels, those are the things that have created the greatest source of air pollution. So the correct answer in this one is burning fossil fuels, C. Acid precipitation. This is another one that will actually take either of two answers. We know that oh, I'm sorry. This is the wrong question. All right. I was getting ahead of myself. Acid precipitation, there's only one answer here, and that is it's going to decrease biodiversity on land. It's going to hurt, it's going to degrade the habitat. And if it degrades the habitat, things are probably not going to thrive very well there. So it may very well decrease the variety of life that's on land. The reduction of the ozone layer is caused by, and these are the chlorofluorocarbons. This is the CFCs. It's a lot easier to say CFCs than the other part. This was actually taken straight from the video that you watched earlier. So no one should miss that one on the test. This is the one I was thinking of earlier about acid precipitation. On this one, the algal blooms in lakes decrease the amount of oxygen in the lake when they decay, or are caused by acid precipitation, or clog the gills of fish. And then you have the choice of both A and B. Actually, this is one that we did not have a chance to go over a whole lot of. We know that this could decrease the amount of oxygen because, but we actually did some Googling around, and that these algal blooms are caused by acid precipitation. We're not going to count this one wrong if you missed it. But the correct answer would be both A and B in this scenario. And then the last couple of questions. When an exotic species are introduced into an area, their populations may grow exponentially because the species does what? Well, is it saying that the species is a large species? Well, not necessarily. Are they predators? Well, they may be. Are they small? Who knows? Or do they lack competitors and predators? And if something's new to the environment, perhaps they don't have predators or competitors for food. If you brought in a big crocodile and put it into a pond somewhere, well, the chances are there's nothing going to compete with it, and there's probably nothing going to go out and eat it, but it's going to be feasting and feeding on a lot of the variety of life that's already in that pond. So if you can think about the answer in the extreme, that's how that exotic species being introduced could grow exponentially. The correct answer is C. And then number 37, the African elephant population was greatly reduced between 1970 and 1990. And we know that a lot of people wanted the tusks, and a lot of times they would kill these elephants just for the tusks and just leave the body laying there. And what a waste. that was, but that's actually excessive hunting. Excessive hunting. Hopefully you've done well on this worksheet. This concludes this particular one. We definitely want you to go over the study guide. Make sure that you're familiar with all of the terms that are there. If you have any questions, we'll be having a Zoom meeting. Hopefully all of y'all will tune into that. That'll be on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And a lot of you have our numbers or you have our email where you can contact us. So please feel free to do so. I hope you're staying well. I know that we miss you. And these lessons are a lot more fun when they're interactive, when we can talk about things and argue about them, and I can get your input on things. And we really are amazed all the time by the questions that you come up with. But anyway, stay safe. This concludes this second worksheet answer sheet, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.